students, I am starting with ADOT solutions. So today we are going to see about the first year chemistry chapter. So myself, I am Santoshi Reddy and I will be teaching you chemistry. So today we are going to see about the first year chemistry chapter, chemical equilibrium. Okay, so in this, let us see one by one the important questions which were frequently asked in the board exam. The first question we are having is, state the law of mass action. Okay, so here we have to give the statement. So according to this law of mass action, what it has been stated means, at a given temperature, the rate of a chemical reaction is directly proportional to the product of active masses of the reactants. Okay, so this we call it as a law of mass action. Okay, so let us write and see. So this we can write it as, at a given temperature, the rate of a chemical reaction is directly proportional to the product of active masses of the reactants. Okay, so this is the statement we are having for law of mass action. If you are writing this much, then you can score 2 marks. Now coming to the next question, state Le Chatelier's principle. Okay, and this question also it carries 2 marks. So according to the Le Chatelier principle, what he has stated is that when an equilibrium is attained between a reaction, so when we are changing any of the factors like concentration, temperature or pressure, etc., then the equilibrium shifts in such a direction or in such a manner so as to reduce the effect which we have given to it. Okay, so this we call it as a Le Chatelier principle. For example, suddenly if someone pinches you, then what happens? You will just remove your hand from there. Okay. In the same way, when we are applying any effect such as concentration, temperature or pressure, so when a chemical reaction has attained the equilibrium, it adjusts itself so as to reduce that effect. So this only we call it as a Le Chatelier's principle. Okay. Now if you are going to write it, then we can write it as, when an equilibrium is subjected to change, in any of the factors such as concentration, temperature or pressure, the equilibrium will shift in the direction opposite direction to reduce its effect. Okay, so this we call it as a Le Chatelier's principle. Now coming to the next question, what is the effect of pressure of on a gaseous chemical equilibrium? So what happens when a reaction has attained the equilibrium if we are increasing or decreasing the pressure? Okay, so here let us take an example and see what happens here. For example, if we have taken the example, nitrogen reacts with hydrogen to form ammonia. Okay, so this is a simple reaction we have taken. Okay, now here if we are increasing the pressure, what happens? The equilibrium will shift to that direction where the number of moles are less, so as to attain the equilibrium. Okay, and if we are decreasing the pressure, then the equilibrium will shift in such a direction where the number of moles are more. Okay, so this is how it is affecting the pressure towards the chemical equilibrium. So here in this reaction we can see that on the left hand side, that is the reactant parts, we are having 4 moles we are having totally, okay, and on the right hand side we are having 2 molecules. Okay, so now here what happens? Now if we are increasing the pressure, now this has attained the equilibrium. So at the equilibrium, if we are increasing the pressure, so then what happens? As I told you that if we are increasing the pressure, then the equilibrium will shift to that side where the number of moles are less. Okay, so in this case you can see that on which side we are having number of moles less, on the left hand side or on the right hand side. So as we can see that on the right hand side the number of moles are less, so the equilibrium will shift towards the right. Okay, now if we are decreasing the pressure, now this is a equilibrium reaction. Now if we are decreasing the pressure, then what happens? The equilibrium will shift to that direction where the number of moles are less. Okay, so here what happens is that, so it will be moving towards the right side. Okay, so these things we have to remember that. So when we are increasing the pressure, it will shift to the direction where there are less number of moles of the reactants or products, or if we are decreasing the pressure, it will move towards that direction where the number of moles are more. Okay, so this is how the effect of pressure will be affecting. Okay, so decrease in pressure will shift. So we can write it in a sentence. Increase in pressure, then the equilibrium, will shift towards the side where there are less number of moles of gases. Where there are less number of moles of gases. Now, if there is a decrease in pressure, okay, so decrease in pressure, then the equilibrium will shift towards the side where there are more number number of moles of gases. Hope you have understood. So this thing you have to remember that if we are increasing the pressure, then the equilibrium will shift towards the direction where there are less number of moles of gases, and if we are decreasing the pressure, then the equilibrium will shift towards that direction where there are more number of moles of gases. Okay, so this is how you have to write the effect of pressure on the gases at equilibrium. Now coming to the next question is, what is Levy's acid? Give one example. Okay, so Levy's acid is nothing but which can donate a pair of electrons. Okay, the substance or a molecule which can donate a pair of electrons, we call it as a Levy's acid. For example, we are having boron trifluoride plus ammonia. Okay, so over the ammonia we are having a lone pair of electrons. So this ammonia is having more electrons. Okay, it is rich in electrons, and boron trifluoride, it is deficient in electrons. Okay, so here the ammonia can donate a pair of electrons to the boron trifluoride. Okay, so therefore here ammonia is considered as a Levy's acid, and boron trifluoride which can accept the electron, that is considered as a Levy's base here. Okay, so Levy's acid is nothing but a substance which can accept a pair of electron is known as a Levy's acid, and which is donating a pair of electron is considered as a Levy's base. Okay, so here in this case we are having ammonia as a base and boron trifluoride as a acid. Because this ammonia is rich in electrons, so it can donate a pair of electrons to the boron trifluoride. So this ammonia is a Levy's base and boron trifluoride is a Levy's acid. So here we'll be having a bond in this way. Okay, so Levy's acid is nothing but the substance which can accept a pair of electrons is called Levy's acid. Okay, the substance which can accept a pair of electrons is known as the Levy's acid. Now someone is having more money, and if it is donating the money to the other person, so the person who is donating the money to the other person, that person is known as the Levy's base, and which the person who is accepting that money, okay, that person is known as the Levy's acid. Okay, so this is how you can remember the Levy's acid and Levy's base. So which can donate the electrons are the Levy's bases, and which can accept the electrons are the Levy's acids. Okay, so if you are writing this much, you will be scoring 2 marks. Now coming to the next question is about what is meant by ionic product of water and what is its value at room temperature. Okay, so as we know that water is a weak acid. Okay, so we know that water is a weak acid. Okay, and this can ionize itself. Okay, so here in the water we can observe that there is a self ionization. Okay, so there is a self ionization. So if we write the reaction, then here we can write that it gives us H plus and OH minus. It gets ionized to give us the H plus and OH minus. So this water, it can act both as an acid as well as a base. Okay. So water can act as both acid as well as base. Okay, so it can act both as a acid as well as a base. Now, if we are writing the equilibrium constant for the water, then it is denoted as Kw. Okay, so this Kw only we call it as a ionic product of water. So ionic product of water is nothing but it is the molar concentration of H plus and the molar concentration of OH minus. Okay. So ionic product of water is nothing but it is the product of molar concentration of H plus and the molar concentration of the OH minus. We call it as a ionic product of water. So generally we will be writing in this way. Okay. So but here water is a pure liquid. So pure liquids are taken as 1. So therefore ionic product of water is equals to molar concentration of H plus and molar concentration of OH minus we are having. And at the room temperature, the ionic product of water, we are having the value as Kw equals to 1 into 10 to the power of minus 14 moles per liter. Okay. So this is at about 25 degree Celsius. This is the ionic product of water we are having. Okay. So now coming to the next question. Calculate the pH of 0.05 m sulfuric acid solution. Okay. So this is a simple problem we are having. Okay. So as we know that to calculate the pH value, we should write the formula for the pH. So as we know that we are having pH equals to minus log to the molar concentration of H plus ion. Okay. So this is the formula we are having for the pH to calculate the pH. Okay. So here they have given us the sulfuric acid. So upon dissociation, this sulfuric acid, it gives us H plus plus SO4 minus 2. Okay. So here you can see that it has given us the 2 moles of hydrogen ions. Okay. So as we have, can see that the concentration of the H plus ion, it is 0.05. Okay. So since we are having 2 molecules, so this will be into 2. So therefore here we can write pH equals to minus log of 0.05 into 2. Okay. So this we are getting it as minus 0.1 log minus 0.1. So therefore the pH is equals to 1. Okay. So the answer for this we are having 1. Now coming to the next question. What are homogeneous and heterogeneous equilibria? Give 2 examples of each we are having. Okay. So homogeneous equilibria is nothing but if in an equilibrium, if the reactants and products both are in a same phase. Okay. So phase here is nothing but it can be gases, liquids or solids. Okay. So if they are present in the same phase, then we call them as the homogeneous equilibria. Okay. For example, we are having H2 plus I2. It gives us HI, that is hydrogen plus iodine it gives us 2 molecules of hydrogen iodide. So here H2 is in gaseous state, iodine is in gaseous state, and even the hydrogen iodide is in gaseous state. So all the three are in the same phase, that is the reactant and the products. Okay, both are in the same phase. So these we call them as the homogeneous equilibrium. Let us take another example and see. So nitrogen reacts with hydrogen to give us ammonia. Okay. So in this case also you can see that nitrogen is in gaseous state, hydrogen is in gaseous state, and also the product form ammonia is also in a gaseous state. So here also you can see that the reactant and product both are in the same phase. Then such a one we call them as the homogeneous equilibrium. Okay, so here we can write that if the reactants and the products in a chemical equilibrium are in the same phase, then it is known as homogeneous equilibrium. Then it is known as the homogeneous equilibrium. Now suppose coming to the next one is about the heterogeneous equilibrium. Okay, so heterogeneous equilibrium means if the reactants and the product are in different phases, okay, then these we call them as the heterogeneous equilibrium. Okay, so now let us take one example and see heterogeneous equilibrium. For example, calcium carbonate, it gets decomposed to give us the calcium oxide plus carbon dioxide. Okay, so in this example you can see that the calcium carbonate is in solid state and the calcium oxide formed is also in a solid state, but whereas the gas formed, that is the carbon dioxide, is in a gaseous state. Then such a reaction or such a chemical equilibrium reaction, we call it as a heterogeneous equilibrium, because here you can see that we are having the two phases, that is the solid state as well as the gaseous state we are having. So this we call it as a heterogeneous equilibrium. Another example we can take is that nickel reacts with carbon monoxide to give us the tetracarbonyl nickel. Okay, so this gives us a tetracarbonyl nickel. So in this case the nickel is in solid phase and the carbon monoxide is in gaseous phase, and the tetracarbonyl nickel is also in a gaseous phase. So here in this example also you can observe that we are having two different phases, the solid phase as well as the gaseous phase. Then such a one we call it as a heterogeneous equilibrium. So here we can write it as if the reactants and the products in a chemical equilibrium are in different phase. Are in different phase is known as heterogeneous equilibrium. Heterogeneous equilibrium. Okay, so this much you have to write for this question. Now let us see the next question. Coming to the next question we are having is about application of Le Chatelier's principle for the industrial synthesis of ammonia by Haber's process. So this is one of the important question we are having for, from the exam point of view. Okay, so here they have asked us about the manufacture of ammonia by Haber's process. Okay, so for the manufacture of ammonia by Haber's process, we require nitrogen and hydrogen gas, which are compressed together to give us the ammonia. So let us see the reaction for this. Nitrogen plus hydrogen, it gives us the ammonia. Okay, so this is the balanced chemical equation we are having. Okay, so here in this reaction is exothermic in nature. So it is a exothermic process we are having. So exothermic process, exothermic is nothing but it liberates the heat here, we can say. Okay, so if it is liberating the heat, then what is the favorable condition for this one? Low temperature is the favorable condition. So here we can write it that since the reaction is exothermic one, so here the favorable temperature is low. Okay, so here the favorable condition according to the Le Chatelier principle, the favorable condition for temperature, it is low. Okay, the favorable condition for the temperature is low, we can say. Now if you observe the volume on both sides of the reaction, okay, so on the reactant sides you can see that we are having 4 volumes, okay, that is the 3 moles of hydrogen and 1 mole of nitrogen we have. On the right hand side we have got 2 moles of ammonia. So when we are comparing the volume on both the sides, the volume on the left side is more when compared to the right side. Okay, so here therefore what happens? So since on the right hand side the volume is less, then high pressure is a favorable condition according to the Le Chatelier principle. High pressure is favorable. Okay, so and because the reaction has to occur very fast, so here the catalyst and the molybdenum are used here. So the catalyst used here is the iron as a catalyst and molybdenum as a promoter. Okay, so here you can see that according to Le Chatelier's principle, so we know that whenever there is an effect of concentration, temperature or pressure, then the equilibrium will shift in such a way that so as to reduce the effect of those factors. Okay, so on that basis only here we have written that since the reaction is exothermic process, so the low temperature is a favorable condition, and since on the right hand side, that is the product side, the volume is less, therefore high pressure is a favorable condition here. And because the reaction has to occur fast, so to this they have added the catalyst, that is iron is acting as a catalyst and molybdenum is acting as a promoter. Okay, so these are the favorable condition for the manufacture of ammonia by Haber's process. Okay, so very low temperature also the reaction becomes low. So therefore here the optimum temperature is maintained here we can say. So the optimum temperature of about 723 Kelvin to about 740 Kelvin, the optimum temperature is maintained so as to carry out the reaction little bit faster we can say. Okay, and the pressure maintained here is about 1 to 2 atmospheric pressure is maintained, and the catalyst used is the iron and the promoter used is the molybdenum. Okay, so this is how the by using the Le-Chatelier principle the ammonia is prepared. Okay, now coming to the next question, discuss the application of Le-Chatelier's principle for the industrial synthesis of sulfur trioxide. Okay, so just now as we have seen for the ammonia process, that is the synthesis of ammonia by Haber's process, similarly for this question also we are going to apply the Le-Chatelier's principle and see that how easily this sulfur trioxide can be manufactured. Okay, so according to the Le-Chatelier's principle, okay, so according to the Le-Chatelier's principle for the synthesis of sulfur trioxide, we are having sulfur dioxide plus oxygen, it gives us the sulfur trioxide. Okay, so this is the reaction we are having, equilibrium reaction. Okay, so in this reaction is exothermic process. That is, during the formation of sulfur trioxide, there is a liberation of heat. Okay, so therefore this is a exothermic process. So when the reaction is exothermic process, then according to Le-Chatelier's principle, low temperature is the favorable condition. So here we can write low temperature is the favorable condition. Okay, and here when we are observing the number of moles on both the sides of the reaction, then we can observe that on the left hand side there are more number of moles when compared to the right hand side. That is, in the reactant side we are having more number of moles, and on the product side there are less number of moles. So according to Le-Chatelier's principle, here the high pressure is favorable here we can say. Okay, so therefore here a high pressure is the favorable condition according to Le-Chatelier principle. Okay, but here at high pressure there can be a corrosion here. To avoid the corrosion, the optimum pressure of 1 to 2 atmospheric pressure is maintained here we can say. Okay, and to increase the rate of reaction, here the catalyst is used. So the catalyst here used is the vanadium pentoxide. Okay, vanadium pentoxide is used to increase the rate of reaction. Okay, so here according to the Le-Chatelier's principle, because it is an exothermic process, so the temperature should be low, but so that the reaction is carried out little bit faster, the optimum temperature is maintained here we can say. Okay, and according to Le-Chatelier principle, on both sides of the reaction, the number of moles are not equal. So on the right hand side, the number of moles are less. So therefore, high pressure is a favorable condition. But because if we are maintaining the high pressure, there can be a corrosion. So therefore, to avoid that one, the optimum pressure of 1 to 2 atmospheric pressure is maintained here, we can say. And to increase the rate of reaction, the catalyst vanadium pentoxide is used here. Okay, so this much information you have to write in this question. Now coming to the next question we are having, explain the concept of Bronsted-Lowry acid-base theory with suitable example. Okay, so here they have asked us to explain about the Lowry-Bronsted theory. Okay, so according to the Lowry-Bronsted theory, the acid is a substance which can donate a proton. Okay, a substance which donates a proton is known as a acid here, and which can accept a proton is known as a base here. Okay, so here we can write it as a substance which loses a proton is a acid. A substance which accepts a proton is a base. Okay, so a substance which loses a proton is an acid, and which accepts a proton is a base here. So now let us take a simple example here. HCl plus ammonia. Okay, so here the HCl loses a proton and ammonia accepts it to form NH4 plus and Cl minus. Okay, so here which one is losing the proton? HCl is losing, that is the hydrochloric acid is losing a proton. So therefore, according to Lowry-Bronsted theory, HCl is a acid here. Okay, and because the ammonia is accepting a proton here, so ammonia is a base here. Okay, so after losing and gaining or accepting of a proton, so these get converted into a conjugate acid and conjugate base. Okay, so the base which can accept a proton, we call which can lose a proton, we call it as a conjugate acid. And Cl minus is as a conjugate base. Okay, so here in this example you can see that the ammonium ion, it can lose a proton, so therefore it is known as a conjugate acid, and Cl minus, it can accept a proton, so therefore it is known as a conjugate base. Okay, so this is how we are having the conjugate acid and base. So here you can see that a substance which can lose a proton is an acid. So here HCl is losing a proton, therefore we have written it as an acid, and a substance which can accept a proton is a base. So here the ammonia is accepting a proton, so therefore it is a base we are having. And here we can see that the ammonia got converted into ammonium ion and HCl got converted into a chloride ion. So the ammonium ion can lose a proton, therefore it is known as a conjugate acid. The base which can lose a proton is known as a conjugate acid, and the acid which can accept a proton is known as a conjugate base. Okay. So, and this together we call it as a conjugate acid base pair we are having. Okay. So, this is all about the Lowry-Bronsted theory for acids and bases. Next question is, what is conjugate acid base pair? Write the conjugate acid and conjugate base of each of the following. Okay. So, here they have given us some of the questions where we have to write the conjugate acid and base pair. Okay. So, here first of all let us define what is conjugate acid and base pair. So, a conjugate acid and base pair is a compound which is differing only by a proton, okay, which differs only by a proton, then such a one we call it as a conjugate acid base pair. Okay, hope you have understood. Which differ by the acid base pair which differ only by one proton, we call it as a conjugate acid base pair. Okay. So, now let us write the conjugate acid and conjugate base of each of these following. The first one we are having OH minus. So, here in the OH minus, the conjugate acid is water. Okay, the conjugate acid is water and the conjugate base is oxygen. Okay, got it? The conjugate acid is water and the because this water can lose a proton and oxygen it can accept a proton. So, therefore, for this OH minus we are having conjugate acid as water and the conjugate base as oxygen. Next one we are having is the bicarbonate ion. Okay. So, in the bicarbonate ion, the conjugate acid is carbonic acid and the conjugate base is OH minus. Okay. So, here the conjugate acid for a bicarbonate ion we are having the carbonic acid and the conjugate base here is the OH minus, because carbonic acid loses a proton to form a carbonate ion and OH minus it can accept a proton. Okay. So, therefore, it is a conjugate base we are having. Then coming to the next one we are having is a bisulfate ion. Okay. So, here in the bisulfate ion, the conjugate acid is sulfuric acid, that is H2SO4, and the conjugate base is sulfate ion. Okay. So, for the bisulfate ion, the conjugate acid is sulfuric acid, okay, and the conjugate base is a sulfate ion we are having. Similarly, next one is the water. So, in the water, the conjugate acid is hydronium ion and the conjugate base is OH minus. Okay. Then coming to the last one, that is ammonia we are having. So, in the ammonia, the conjugate acid is ammonium ion and the conjugate base is NH2. minus amine. Okay, so these are the conjugate acid and conjugate base for the following given compounds, we can say. Okay, so these are the questions asked frequently in your board exams. Hope all of you have understood. All the best. Thank you.